Could you briefly walk us through your career path?
I worked for Synopsys, then I worked for 5 years at Google, then I was one of the early employees in a startup Twitter, and then 6 years in Amazon, and now I've been with Samsung for 4 years now.
How can individuals prepare for these future technologies?
Keep in mind that the older you get, your risk-taking ability goes lesser and lesser. People think it's the other way. Now that I have money, now that I'm settled, I can take more risks. No, it's the other way. Now I have more to lose. So the more risk you want to take it when you are young. Because even though you think you can take more risk when you are older, no. Your risk tolerance goes down as you age.
Will Samsung survive in the market?
Any company, if you are complacent, you will die. Many big companies have disappeared. Why? Because they thought they were too good and they were too rigid and not flexible and not changing with time and not investing enough in innovation, and that those companies will die. Why I think Samsung won't is because we are still
Let's start with the career topic. Could you briefly walk us through your career path?
Sure. Well, out of school, I started working in India in hardware engineering. And then I came to America in 1998. And I've been working in data center infrastructure ever since. I worked for Synopsys. Then I worked for 5 years at Google. Then I was one of the early employees in a startup Twitter. Then did 3 years in India, building up Reliance Jio. It's like Kakao, like a telco company. And then 6 years in Amazon. And now I've been with Samsung for 4 years now.
Then, could you tell me about your educational background?
Sure. I did my undergrad in electronics. And then I came to America. And while I was working, I took a master's from San Jose State in engineering and an MBA. And then later on, I went to USC to get doctorate in organizational leadership.
Then, when and why did you come to the America?
Well, I came to America in 1998. The dot-com boom was happening. And, America was an exciting place to work in dot-com. So,
Okay, then let's talk about some of the company that you have experienced. So, what did you work on at Google?
yeah, so when I joined Google had only a couple of data centers, and Google wanted to expand their footprint all over the world. So my job was to lead a team of project managers who were responsible for working with around 50 plus teams to put new Google footprint in new countries, right? So say Europe, say Korea, so India, right? So we need to work with so many different teams to make that happen.
So, at that time, there's no search engine in Google?
No, search engine was there, but it was all of that search was redirected data center in America and just one or two in Europe. And the way search works, it's much better if you're nearer to your customer, right? And the world's population is more outside America than inside, right? So you want to put data centers in every country, Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Korea, Japan, Singapore, every place, right? My job was to expand our infrastructure, which means the data centers, the networking, the computers, this software that serves the search to every country in the world or every city within a country.
So, that is the time of expanding the Google to global company.
Correct.
Then, since I know that Google was founded in 1998, so you were there in the early days around 2005.
Right.
So what was it like?
Well, Google was like a brand new experience. It was more college environment than a working environment, right? So this is a function of also being in the Bay Area, right? So the dot-com boom changed the company culture here, and it became very casual. People wearing shorts, people having fun at work. Google had so many cafes where there was a lot of free food, a lot of activities for people to do in the office. So it was fun. It was more casual, more like a bunch of people having fun, but also a bunch of people carefully selected, right? They were hiring from the best schools and things like that. So very smart people, yet very humble people. So it was a lot of fun.
Then is that is a special company culture at that time in Google?
Yeah, it's not just Google, but the whole Bay Area, right? It's always been, making it simple, keeping it more effective, right? It's very little bureaucracy and a lot of work being done, right? But a lot of fun had at the same time. And that culture has just kept on building itself in Bay Area.
Okay. Then what was corporate culture focus at Google, do you think?
Well, the Google's mission or motto is do no evil, right? So Google has always thought about, making world a better place, right? So it was always about doing the right thing. In Google, it was always about being right. Anybody could speak to anybody. Like if you are a low-level employee and you wanted to walk up to the CEO and give an idea, it's okay. It's promoted actually, right? So there is no bureaucracy and levels. Anybody could talk to anybody. You just need to know what you're talking about and work hard, right? So
Okay, then after leaving Google, you worked at Twitter. Could you explain why you decided to make that career move?
sure. I mean, in English, we say, big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond, right? So in Google, by the time I left, Google was pretty big. They had over 20,000 people. You learned a lot, but you don't get to apply everything you learned in the same company, because larger companies, you have smaller functions. And Twitter was just starting, less than 100 people, had 25 million users. Their website was going down every time somebody scored a goal. So for me, it's an opportunity to have a bigger role and build something from scratch, right? And that was exciting.
Then what did you work on Twitter too?
So in Twitter, I had to build a team from scratch and completely build their infrastructure. So Twitter was hosted on somebody else's, like entities, servers, and things like that. We had to build our own data centers, put our own servers, and deploy all the Twitter software on our own infrastructure. So my team was responsible for that end to end.
So you made the data infrastructure on there.
Correct.
Okay, then as you mentioned, the Twitter is also earlier level at the time. So what was it like?
Well, I mean, it's the same fun culture, which is like a bunch of kids hanging out in a dormitory and putting out ideas and trying new things, right? But Google, when I joined, they had already gone public. They had tons of money, lots of smart people. Twitter was a startup, so we need to be very cautious on the decisions we make, the finance, we had to be very careful and things like that. So it's the same culture, but a little bit more urgency because, it's a do or die situation. A little bit tight on cash, so you have to be very careful how you spend it. You can't make a lot of mistakes. You need to work really long hours because you have to do many different things. You can't hire a person to do this and hire one person has to play many different hats. So it's much more higher level of urgency. A lot of things are not done in a proper way, so you're creating everything from scratch. Process, procedures, people, training people, hiring people, right? So very busy.
So you mean scratch means like a failure?
Scratch means from zero, starting from zero, right? So
It's like 0 to 1.
yeah,
Okay, then what was corporate culture focus at Twitter too?
it's pretty much the same. The only difference is, Twitter was one of the pioneers in social media, right? So there were not many social media companies at that time. Google tried a little bit, MySpace had died. Facebook was the only one, right? So Twitter introduced a new form of communication, right? It's all about, Facebook is not known people, regular people talking to everybody, a few people. One person, I know 10 people, right? Twitter was very different. It was all about celebrities, one person talking and a billion people listening, right? So it's a very different paradigm in the social media world. But it was very interesting. We would have celebrities coming into our office every week because if you had to get a blue tick, you had to be physically present in the office. I met President Putin. I met Lady Gaga. We had Snoop Dogg come to our office and do a live jam session of music. So it was fun. Yeah, it was almost like working in the film industry.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Then in this era, there are also so many companies wants to make their social media service in every country, but there are so many failure on their company because maybe Meta and Twitter like X or YouTube, something like that is just the social media in this era. But as you mentioned, the Twitter has successful results on the social media scene. So why do you think Twitter get success in that time?
Well, Google tried to make a social media many times, right? And Google is a brilliant company, but they were not successful, right? Versus Meta was, Twitter was, right? It is just because you're good at doing one thing necessarily mean you'll be good at something else. Social media is about humans connecting, understanding their emotions and all those things. And Google was all about engineering great things, right? So I think, knowing your customer really well, creating a differentiated product. And then, so a lot of success from Twitter was from that. There was a lot of user experience teams. They were continuously interviewing people on what works, what doesn't work. If they make a new feature, do they like it? If you don't like a new feature, do you kill it? So they were more connected, so the group of people who make the product really needs to know their customers. That's all about it.
So that means like focus on customer is the most important thing.
Of course. For customer is king wherever you are, and if you really know your customer and the use case and the nuances, right? You may not be targeting the whole population. You might be just targeting a young demographic, or you might be just targeting women, or so within the customers, what specific customer do you want is very important.
Then I know that Steve Jobs said that customers don't know what they want. Do you know this word?
Yeah.
Then how do you think about this word?
Well, yeah. So, sometimes, you go and ask a customer and they'll tell you what they want and you can make it. That works a lot of time. But most of the successful products were developed when it didn't exist, right? So you need to anticipate the customer. You need to anticipate the need of the customer. But that being said, you need to be, once you have anticipated a need and created a product, you still need to closely keep in touch with the customer. Is the customer engaging well? Go talk to them and see, what do you like? What do you don't like? What's the feature you want, right? So you can't do that in vacuum. You need to have the pulse of the customer.
Okay, thank you. Then I heard that after that you went back to India. And how did you end up going back to India to work for Reliance?
Well, home is home, right? So for me, coming to America, it's a very different culture and things like that. But all my family, friends were in India, right? So I had this dream that I would be able to go back and work there, right? And so Reliance Jio, which is Ambani, which is one of the largest conglomerates in India, they were trying to launch a 4G telco service all over the India, right? So they were looking for people who had experience in data center and infrastructure. So they specifically targeted me here and wanted me to come over there. So for me, it was an opportunity to see if I could work with my family in India, And I took a 3-year contract. And unfortunately, my kids wanted to study here, so I had to come back.
Then what were the cultural differences between working in the India and the US?
Well, India can be pretty bureaucratic, right? So India, there are levels, right? There is junior employee and manager and director, and things flow upwards in the funnel, right? Versus in America, America is loosely structured. It's freestyle, Anybody, if you can work hard and have great ideas, right? So things can be bureaucratic, things can be slow in India, right? So it takes a longer time to work. Finding talent, right? I think I'm successful in Google not because of me, because Google has so many other smart people. You need a group of hardworking and smart people to make things happen, So finding good talent right next to you, sitting on your next table, is very important. And that's difficult in India because, the top talent, you can't find it in one city, right? Because it's spread out all around the place. In Google and all, I remember one of the very first objectives when they went public was to create 100 new offices in all parts of the world, because if you can't bring all the smart people to where you want, you have to take your office to where smart people are.
Then India is now known as a tech talent hub. So how do you think that has developed?
Yeah, see, it's all about where you can find talent and at what cost, right? So in America, you can find a lot of talent, but America only has 300 million people, and not all of them go into engineering, right? So to find software and hardware engineers in America is very hard, right? On the other hand, India and China, right? Two largest populations, 1.5 plus billion people, right? So there is a lot of talent there. Two, a lot of them do study in English, so the language is not a big barrier. And three, the labor rates are much cheaper, right? So if you pay somebody $500 an hour here, in India, you only have to save 20% of that, right? So it's cheaper, right? So all these three things help, to outsource jobs to India.
That makes the chance to India develop the engineering skill.
Yeah.
Then after that, I know that you later joined Amazon. So what was the reason behind that decision?
My daughter was getting into high school, and she wanted to study here, so I decided to come back.
Then what did you work on at Amazon?
So Amazon is the pioneer in cloud computing, AWS, right? Yes. So I joined in AWS, and my responsibility as a director was to expand their footprint, put new regions in new countries, right? So one of the countries I launched just when I came up was Korea, right, in Korea. But we had to put those kind of regions everywhere in the world, every country in the world, right? So my team was responsible for working with other teams to come up with a blueprint on how a new region can be launched, where it should be launched, and then executing it. So making sure There's a lot of things to do. A new region can cost you, $2 to $3 billion in the next, 5 years, right? So it's a big decision, and to execute, it's fun.
Then what is the corporate culture focus at Amazon too?
Amazon is a very, very different culture. Again, ultimately, when you look back, everything comes back to productivity and being very efficient and doing things. But Amazon has a very, very peculiar culture. First of all, in Amazon, every decision that's made is based on a document. You cannot go into a meeting and say, this is what I want to do. You can go into a meeting, you can bring out a document which literally explains what you want to do. Everybody in that room will read that document for like 10 minutes, ask questions on why this will work or why this won't work, and then a decision is made, right? So one, you have to write down and have a very detailed blueprint of what you want to do. Two, it's a very, very harsh culture for people who are not used to it. Very, very busy. Everybody's working hard. They have a lot of leadership principles. So many companies say, I have principles and I have vision and mission, but you only see that once in an annual day. But Amazon's leadership principle, it's applied every day. In every meeting, somebody will ask you about, what about that leadership principle on customer obsession? Is your decision that you're making obsessed on the customer? It looks like the customer is suffering there. This is more for profit. And then you can kill that decision right then and there, right? So they really value their leadership principles and they apply it in every day. Right? So I really found their culture very, very attractive. Everybody has vision statement and leadership principles, but Amazon really took it to the next level, where they made their principles and made every employee use it every day, not once in a while, So think about it, right? Every action, every meeting, every decision, the leadership principles are in play, So they took that culture to the next level. They said this is what we want, and they check every time that it's happening. I remember, in one of the meetings, Jeff Bezos saying, my biggest worry is as I hire hundreds of thousands of people, that the culture of the company gets diluted. They don't understand what the culture and leadership principles are anymore, which is very true. But, it's practice that makes things perfect. So Amazon practices their leadership principles on a daily basis, which is great.
That's interesting. Then is it okay to ask you about the Samsung?
Sure.
Oh, really? Then after that, you joined the Samsung, and what was the reason behind that decision too?
Well, I left Amazon because I wanted to do my PhD, all right? And I thought it would take all my time. So it's not a PhD, it's more EDD, right? A doctorate in education, right? So later on when I retire, I want to start teaching, right? So that's the reason why I took it. I thought it will take my time full time, right? Because Amazon, there is work-life balance, but, I definitely could not have done my studies along with working at Amazon, So I thought I would take a break and just study. But like 3 to 6 months down the lane, I'm like, you know what? It's not as time-consuming as I thought it would be. So Samsung reached out to me at that point of time for their hypergrowth strategy, because Samsung Semiconductor's largest customers are companies like Amazon and Google, so they wanted somebody who worked there, right? So I took the job.
Then what was the corporate culture focus at Samsung too?
Very different, right? Samsung is, through and through Korean company, right? The culture is determined by our headquarters, which is in Korea. Very different, very family oriented, but very structured, right? There is a very clear structure here where there is a director, and so it follows the structure. There are a lot of cultural nuances. We use PowerPoints as documentation instead of Word documents like in Amazon. So it's very different culture. Not many people. So all the decision is made back in the headquarters. That's the first time for me. I've always worked in the headquarters. Now I'm working in a subsidiary, right? So decision is rightly made in Korea. So how do you work with them? How do you communicate with them? Right? The time is different. The language is different, right? So figuring all those things out took some time.
Then how do you think that Samsung get a high position in the semiconductor market?
Well, clearly they are technology leaders, right? So Samsung is the pioneer in memory business, right? So they are the very first people to do it, right? And see, the culture will be different for every company, but it is their own specific nuanced culture what made them successful. So if you take Google's culture and put it in Twitter, it won't work. If you take Twitter's culture and put it in Amazon, it won't work. Same product, same people, So Samsung is successful for Samsung's culture, right? Which is very quality oriented. Everybody respects everybody a lot. It's about collaboration, right? It is about customer success, right? But ultimately, the product is superior, right? Our memory products are the best in the world. Not many people make it, right? If you can see, there is 100 social media companies. How many companies make memory? 4 or 5. Right? There is SK Hynix, Samsung, Micron. That's about it. So it's a very hard industry to work through, and Samsung is just the best at it, both in technology, in their production, in their supply chain. Making the product is easy. Everybody uses electronics, putting it in Europe, in every country in America, and every country in Asia. That's hard, right? So there is a lot. So it works too.
Okay. Then in Korea, we are always concentrated on will Samsung survive in the market? So if you feel uncomfortable, you need to answer. So in Korea, we always say Samsung is in danger because their memory market, DRAM market, is beaten by Hynix from now on, maybe. So in your experience, how do you think Korea companies want to be sustainable or have a great achievement in the market? Then what will they should be changed in the
That's a great question, right? So that's happening to every company, right? There will be a pioneer. So Samsung is the pioneer in marketing industry. Because of that, they were the number one company, right? But then always, whenever there is a good market for some product, there will be competitors coming in. Competitors are much smaller, much more nimble, and they will, win some market share, right? And then someday the competitor might usurp the existing incumbent, right? It's all possible, right? But it's also possible not to be that.
That's right.
For example, every company has taken to try a pie out of Google. Google is still the search engine, right? So if a company becomes too big and too bulky and complacent and doesn't adapt and innovate continuously, the companies will die. But if the companies continue and adapt and change over time, because you cannot just say I'm the biggest guy in the world and what I do is right. If a small company is catching up, we need to study what are they doing right? And what are the lessons we learn, right? And Samsung is a company that's all about learning and adapting, right? So I'm sure I'm not a top level strategist at Samsung at this point of time, but I'm sure there are leaders out there saying, what are we not doing right that our market share is missing, or why is competition being successful? What do we need to do differently, right? So I'm sure there is think tank in Samsung out there right now thinking, what is it that is making other competitors successful, and taking steps to adapt and observe. So personally and selfishly, I would say Samsung will continue to be successful. We will learn from our lessons and mistakes and keep innovating, and we'll be there for a very long time, right? That's what I think. But generally, right, any company, if you are complacent, you will die. Many big companies have disappeared. Why? Because they thought they were too good and they were too rigid and not flexible and not changing with time and not investing enough in innovation and things like that. And that those companies will die. Why I think Samsung won't is because we are still the largest innovator in the world. We spend over $20 billion a year investing in developing new technologies. So we have never thought, hey, let's keep that money or pay dividends or things like that, right? So, culture-wise, running a bigger organization is much harder than running a small organization, right? So that is one thing that Samsung will need to pay really attention to. The bigger and bigger you keep getting, the more and more sluggish you can get. And this is where company culture comes in, and adapting so that you always say nimble. In Amazon, they used to call it the day one technology, day one mentality.
Yeah,
that means every day is day one. Don't think you are like an established company. Think about this is the first day in business, and how hard and how smart and how innovative you have to think to survive in this world, right? If you have that every day, that mentality, you will never fail. So I'm sure Samsung will have to look at some of those day one things too, which is, but it will not be for lack of trying or lack of innovation and things like that, because we are continuously investing in it. The company's culture, the products, everything is in the right place. All you are saying. Another thing is the world doesn't like monopoly, right? If it was just Samsung, everybody will break it up, because if it is monopoly, there is the risk of you're completely dependent upon them, right? So a single vendor in a market is not a good solution, nor a legal solution for the world, right? So it is fair that SK or somebody else is coming up, Competition will make us stronger, not weaker.
That's really interesting answer to Korean people, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Then after that, as you mentioned, you did your PhD in here. So how did you end up getting a PhD in education later in life?
It's the same reason, right? Like I said, my family, all of them are teachers, right? So it is something I've seen in practice and I really love it, So, some things that you value is human connection and respect and things like that. And when my grandfather walks the street in my town, everybody would stop and say hello, right? And, bow down and things like that. And I used to wonder why him? He doesn't have a lot of money. He doesn't have a lot of stature or fame or anything, but everybody would stop by and say thank you and things like that, So teaching when done well, it's a very rewarding job, very noble job. Over time, that as the old teachers were much better than the new teachers, right? But they were more caring, but they had got a lot more respect too, right? So in my mind, if that's something I want to do once I retire, teaching is not a very lucrative job though. It doesn't pay well and things like that, right? So when I grew up, I'm like, oh, I need to become an engineer and do this and do that and things like that. But once I have achieved all those goals, now that I think about it, I would like to spend my later years in teaching, So that's why I decided to take a organizational leadership, education degree. It's a doctorate. It's not a PhD. It's called EDD, right? So
Maybe that's the reason that your answer is very clean, like a teacher. And this is the topic of career on the path, and I will ask you more on the advice, something like for someone who is starting their career. So maybe your career path has been very successful. So what do you think are the key factors that contributed to that success, do you think?
For me, it is very specific to me, right? Some of these things are generic, which is, work hard, work smart, right? Be nice to people around you. And whenever you are not, it will bite you back, So those all things apply to me, right? But for me, very specifically, one thing that's I like about myself is I'm very curious. I always want to learn and ask questions and know more about it. That has helped me be very successful in my career. I would love to say that my network, the people I know, is responsible for my success, but I'm not very good at networking. So while I do acknowledge their role in my success, I could say if I was a better networking person, I would have been more successful. Okay, so I don't network a lot, but knowing people around you is a very important skill. And some people it's natural. Some kids, if you put in a room, they will go and play with everybody. Some people will sit in a corner. By nature, by born they are, how they are. But you can cultivate that habit in you to make more friends, more network, without actually using them or something. It's just saying a hello, being interested in them and things like that. And that person will later on come and give you an opportunity saying, I have this company, do you want to work for me? Or work with this guy? Or do you want to take this business, right? That's the power of network. So if you can, build a lot of it. If you can't, still put an effort and at least build a small network. That will help you a lot, right? So to me, networking is an area that could have helped me grow much further. Learning and being curious is something that has already helped me.
Thanks for giving advice for me and subscribers too. So then what advice would you give to someone who is just starting their career?
One thing in career is you will be remembered by the last mistake you made than the 200 good things you did in last 1 year. So watch out very carefully for derailers, right? Don't create a drama, right? In career, right? So at home, you can create a drama. Everybody loves you, they'll forgive you, right? So in career, your growth is slow and steady. It's because of the work you put in hour by hour, minute by minute, day over day, year over year. But your career can end due to one incident. So don't be stupid at work, okay? That's one thing. Be nice to people, right? So when we are young, we fight with our friends. We fight with our own family, right? And it's okay. Don't do that at work, right? At work, you don't know the other person. Right? So you need to be respectful to them, as patient as possible. That's an advice I would give to my younger self, Don't have temper. Don't be rushing to judge people around you. Oh, that person works hard. This person is lazy. That person is scheming against me. Don't think like that. You should just understand that whatever they have some reason what they are doing it, be more tolerant and be nicer to people, because work is never about you. Work is about 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people working together towards a common goal. So you really need to be people-centric, Don't judge people, don't mess with people, try to help them, if not, stay away from them, right? How you behave is going to be more definite than your individual performance, right? There is no individual performance in a company context. So that is the advice I give to people who are starting career, which is be nice to people. You are at your best when you're with your family. If you wouldn't yell at your mom or dad or brother, if you do, please don't use that at work. But if you don't, if you are more respectful and loving towards your family, reflect on what is it that you are doing there and why you can't do that at work. Why can't you be more forgiving, more patient and things like that? Because if your colleague is happy to hang out with you outside work, that is when you are successful. If your colleague would run away the minute they step out the office, I don't want to spend one more minute with you outside the office, then you haven't made good friends, So think about your office as your larger family and find out what are all the things that you would let go in a family situation and apply that at work, right? Because getting along with people is the single most important thing at work.
Then, as I listen your answer, I think your answer is very logical, and you have clear answer in every questions. So how do you get that ability, do you think?
I'm a very introverted person, so I spend a lot of time by myself. And when I'm by myself, I'm thinking about all the scenarios, on like what went wrong at work in that particular situation. Why did it go wrong? Why did I make that thing, And then I reflect back on it. When I made that mistake, when I was young, I'm like, I'm right, that person is wrong, I should have done it. When I think about the same situation 10 years later, I'm not thinking it that way. Because now I have a kid. When my kid makes a mistake, I'm not trying to yell at him. I'm trying to understand why he made that mistake.
That's right.
So with age and wisdom and maturity, I'm thinking at the same problem through different lenses. And some of these conversations I've had with you, I've had it with myself in my head. So this is not my first time. So that's probably why I'm able to give you clear answers, So you think more about scenarios and you reflect upon yourself, you always have better answers,
Then do you think reading a book and writing a document is helpful to improve that skill?
Absolutely. Reading is absolutely, centric. Read anything. Even if it's a tabloid or you watch a K-drama, I don't care. Any form of data and content is going to make your brain smarter, right? If you observe it, why did that person do that thing? Why couldn't have that person? First part is access to data. Then is metacognition. What if this person did like this? Why did that person yell at it? Why couldn't that person have said it differently? So you start thinking scenarios. This is what AI does too, by the way. It creates a model and it applies scenarios to it. Brain can do that too. You just need to spend time on it. Right? So so put your brain to a lot of data. 2, practice it, right? Try synthesizing. Start putting yourself in the other person's shoe and say, why did that person do it? Because everybody is a good person or a bad person. Everybody is selfish because we all have to live. Everybody also get along with people. We have father, mother, kids, so there is goodness in us too. So don't be jumping into conclusions and put the other in, especially in a company situation, put yourself in the other person's shoes. And then you can see why probably that person did it. Then you can get along well. Getting along with people is the hardest thing in career, not knowing technology or a skill or something like that. Working together with 500 people, that's the hardest part. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
And it can't be wrong. So some people think, what if I put up a show, act like I like people and say the right things? You can't do that. If you are false, if you are not genuine, people will see right through it. People will see if you are not authentic, people will right through it. That's even more worse. If you are playing a game in your office, people will say you're a player and everybody will be suspicious of you and will not work with you at all.
That's right.
So you have to be authentic and genuine too. So don't just say I like you because you want to say it. What I'm saying is genuinely like that person because you have that capability in a smaller group. When it's your son or daughter or mother, why can't you do it to other people? Practice it. Okay. Rest of the things that you think are important, like core skills and technology, everybody knows that. Okay. It's about how you can get along well with people. That's the single most definition of how successful you will be at work.
Okay. Then how do you think, what traits define someone who is truly good at their job?
One of the things that I see consistently in people who are good at their job and people I admire is authenticity. They say what they do what they say, right? They are true and true. They are very clear. They don't hide the bad messages and only tell you the good one. They'll give you all information, right? So they're authentic people, They come from a place where this is what the company needs or the customer needs, and this is what needs to do. Some of the things might not be pleasant to you, but I am still going to say it, right? So my boss or somebody, if they come and say, hey, Anoop, you are late, I shouldn't feel bad about it because that person is just being true. Because if I don't get the work done on time, there's a lot of people who suffer the consequence in the chain, So, but there are some people who wouldn't say that. They'll say, oh, you're doing fine. But then somewhere else they will go and say, oh, it's not delivered because so-and-so didn't deliver it. So that's not authentic, right? So good people are authentic. They will say and do the things consistently, right? There is no games that they play, right? Good, successful people are passionate about their domain. They don't do something just because they have to. They particularly choose that particular field, that particular product, that particular company and role, because that's what they know they are really good at and they really love doing it. So somebody who becomes an engineer but wanted to be a doctor is going to be not good, and vice versa. That's right. So, and they're realistic. They don't try to do things they cannot do. They understand their weaknesses very well too. They don't do something just because they like it, but they're not good at it. But they optimize, they double down on their strengths, and they hire people around them who can negate their weaknesses, right? That's what they do, right? So they're authentic, every one of them, so the amount of work which is they put in is also related to their success. The key is they all work hard. They don't feel work as something they have to do. They feel like work is something they want to do. So you won't complain to yourself that I played 4 hours of video game if you're enjoying it, right? Work is like that to successful people. They love doing what they are doing. They enjoy it. They are not doing it half-heartedly or complaining, say, oh, I have to do it. No, they don't, right? They really enjoy what they are doing, right? And they are well networked, right? They know, they keep connected with all the smart and good people they have met in their life. Then they exchange ideas and thoughts and opportunities, right? There are a lot of good things, but to me, number one is being an authentic leader is very important to me and the people around me. That is what I respect the most.
Like be factfulness.
Yeah.
Sometimes emotion can be barrier of that.
I'm fine with somebody yelling at me. I just want him to yell at me and everybody else the same way. I just don't want somebody who is dishonest, right? Somebody who says one thing to you and says something very different about me to somebody else and things like that. Yeah, those kind of things,
Then maybe I think you manage your careers very well. So how should people manage their careers over time?
It's a hard question again, right? There is no one formula. It all depends upon the individual, right? For me, for some person, my boss at my very first job is now the CIO of AMD. Hasmukh Ranjan, he was very loyal to that company and worked for Synopsys for 20 plus years. And that's what helped him grow ladder by ladder and reach all the way to the C level, So many a times, if you are loyal to a company and stay at that company, you can reach levels, right? That's one way of doing it. I have changed many companies, right? I focus more on what am I producing in my time. Even to my own boss nowadays, I'll say, here is the project or the accomplishments I want to do. And after that, I don't necessarily need to work here. I'm setting a goal on this is what needs to be done in this company, in this particular field, in my team scope. And once I achieve that, I'm going to come back to you and say, what's my next job, right? And if there is none, that's fine. We can part ways, right? So you need to decide what is it that makes you happy and follow a path. Staying in a company is always good, but that requires patience. That again requires a lot of, getting along with people. Not my forte, So getting along well with people is a skill. Some people are good at it, but even if you are not good at it, you have to invest in and good at it later on, and get good at it later on, So, but yeah, it's two choices. Either jump companies with great projects, but somebody who changes a job every 1 year doesn't look good on resume. Nobody would trust that person either, right? But accomplish, either do 3, 4, 5 year stints and create good accomplishments, pick up skills and pick up knowledge and pick up network, or stay in one company, be patient, develop relationships, and you can grow wherever you want to be. The third option is always there too, which is be entrepreneurial. But keep in mind, you only hear the success stories of one person who made it big. There is a lot of people who struggle and fail in the same entrepreneur. Everybody cannot create a startup, okay? So that's a high risk, high reward thing. Be very sure you are surrounded with good people to like help you if you're going to be a startup person, you know?
That's very interesting. I think I need to get that advice too. Then people think like someone who worked in California have very good work and life balance. But when I come here and interview some people in here, they say always they work hard and their companions also work hard. So when I listen that is this city is really good to work life balance. So could you briefly explain about this thinking?
Yeah. Well, work-life balance, it's one by choice and one that is imposed, right? If a company says you have to work 80 hours, even if you want to do fun things or like spend time with family, you can't do it, right? And then secondly, company might say, just work 40 hours. And an individual might decide, I want to work 60 hours or 80 hours because I want to get a promotion or I want to accomplish this, invent this new product or something like that, right? So in reality, it's a mixture of both. Some is from the company and some is individual's choice, right? But even at Amazon, I had to work, sometimes longer hours, but rarely do they give you work that actually, if you work smart, you don't have to work too hard or too long. Working hard is not working long. That's different. Working hard and working smart is creating results, faster. Working 80 hours is working long. Okay, so work hard and work long are different. So not many companies force you to work long in America. Okay, definitely not the tech companies, not the Bay Area companies. If you really work smart and efficiently, without goofing around and watching TV, and taking 3-hour lunch breaks, I don't think you have to work more than 40 or 50 hours in Amazon either. All right. But, what you have to work smart. You have to work hard. You have to be very focused. One of the things they say is brutally prioritize. Given your choice, you could have done 10 different things. But are all those 10 things equally important? Don't do those 2 things. That doesn't sound very exciting or good for the company. Just ignore it, right? So anything that did not really translate to customer, success and satisfaction, they were like, don't do it. That sounds like unnecessary work or things like that, So that's what it is. To be successful, you have to work hard and create results. Now, if you are not good at it, it'll take you longer. That's about it, If you're good at it, you should be able to finish in 40 or 50 hours and go home, right?
So you mean that how to work smart is just focusing on the customer?
Focusing on the customer and brutally prioritizing, right? Out of the 10 things you do, really think whether all 10 things were really important. So one of the things I've seen people do is like they check their email every 5 minutes. Is that really important? Can you just check email like 3 times a day? Does every email require a response within 5 minutes? Right? Like if somebody really wants you that bad, they will text you on your phone. So there is a lot of things we do because we don't feel the urgency. If somebody had said, it's a do or die situation and you have to finish this in 8 hours, we'll find a way to do it. Now, if you have that mentality all the time, you'll work much more efficiently and you'll have more time to do whatever you want to do, Because I've always spent a lot of time with my kids and I've always done things I wanted to do on the side. Both all my masters and PhD I did on the side. So I had to find time, right? And how do you find time? Not by skipping work, by finishing your work faster so you don't have to like stay late,
Then is there any more tips that how to work smart, how to prioritize the standard of the work?
Yeah, I mean, many people do a lot of things without questioning what they are doing and thinking what they are doing. They just jump into the task and halfway through they will say, oh, I should do it differently and things like that. I've heard this saying, it's probably from Einstein, but I'm not sure, that if I could do this all over, I'll spend a little bit more time understanding what is the question, right? Why is it being asked? Is it important? Is it really necessary? Has somebody else done it already? If some other team has done it, you probably just need to go and ask them and take it instead of inventing yourself, right? So focusing a little bit on what you're about to do, why are you doing it? What is the absolute best way to do it? In Amazon, we have a saying, delay the decision till the last minute possible, because some decisions you cannot undo, right? So sometimes doing late is also good, right? So thinking a little bit more about the problem before jumping into it can always save you time in the long run.
And then just focus on that.
Correct.
Then this is the final question of the career. What is the best and the worst career advice that you have listened in your life?
The best career advice I got is from my dad. He said, don't chase money, money will come to you. Do what you're good at, and money will always be there. So that's one thing, especially when we are young. The one thing we all aspire for is being independent, being ability to own things that you want badly, which you couldn't ask your dad or mom, right? So money is a big factor when you are young in your career, right? And a lot of people make suboptimal decisions at that point of time because the money is good. Somebody gives you a starting bonus, or somebody says, I'll give you a promotion if you stay, right? And my dad said, don't worry about money. Money will, and it's not that he gave me his money or something, he just gave me the advice that, just don't chase money, chase the job that actually you enjoy, money will automatically come. And that's very true, so that's one thing, which is when you are starting your career, money is the thing you need the most, and you make a lot of bad decisions before that. Try to it's easy to say that, but try to remember that. Later on, you will probably regret it. That's the best advice. The worst advice, I don't know. The worst advice is the advice I did not get, which is nobody told me the importance of networking. Okay, for me, networking, I interpreted networking as being popular, having a lot of friends and know-how and boasting and things like that. No, you can network and be connected with others in a genuine manner. Just say, this is my interest, that's your interest. Can I stay connected? Just like you reaching out to me saying, can I do an interview through a friend of a friend? Right? It doesn't cost me much. It doesn't cost you anything, right? It's just networking. There is no further ulterior motives there, So it's not a bad advice. It's an advice I did not get in a timely manner, which is do networking. Do a lot of networking. It's very important.
And make broad our perspective.
And it will also bring you direct opportunities. The network will feed you opportunities which you would have never found on your own.
Then I just want to ask you about AI topic. So in the US, how do you see people actually using AI agents in their daily work or business, do you think?
Quite a lot, right? AI-driven bots, chat engines are quite popular here. AI, not the large language model like AI, but AI has been in play for a very long time in US. But, a lot of industrial applications are already on AI. Right, a lot of entertainment is now moving to AI. Generative AI is changing that world, right? So you could see AI embedded in some form in pretty much all of technology, and a lot in now day-to-day life and entertainment too.
Then, as we talked about, it's important to someone who's starting their career need to make a direction to their career. I'm also the one of the start my career when I think if I do that and if AI get my position in the future, what can I do in the future? Something like that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You are worried about AI replacing your job?
Yeah, replacing.
Yeah, look, AI will replace a lot of jobs, So a lot of things will change, right? So somebody answering the phone just to take a reservation, a lot of jobs have already been taken by computer. Before AI was normal computing, right? Or numerical computing. What used to be done by a human is now done by computers. So computers and digitalization has already taken jobs of human beings. Human beings reinvented themselves and found out new ways to be creative and productive, right? So it's more of, I don't know how acute it will be, but it's a long-term problem to me, In the short term, the only difference is the people who work in digitization, right? How we write code and how we develop applications has moved from a numerical computing to AI-based systems, So it's more relevant to people who are studying computer engineering, right? Earlier they would study databases and, coding and things like that. Now fewer people will have to learn that, whoever develop the frameworks that underlies the AI. And most people will be using it in application mode, right? So that's the difference there. In the long run, if a car is self-driving, will the drivers lose the job? Yeah, sure, right? But that person will then figure out something else to do. They have to, right? And in some cases, if there is no viable economy, then the population will contract, right? You can already see that in many nations where if there is not enough money, people will start having less kids, So worst case, if it can't be an expanding economy, then, the population will contract. And there are, catastrophic possibilities too, that no, it doesn't, and the world becomes chaotic and, apocalyptic, right? Is it possible? Yeah, I don't know. But either way, I don't think it's going to be oh, one day everything is okay and next day AI takes over the world. It's going to be gradual, right? And everybody at every facet needs to pay attention to it, right? I mean, the engineers need to make sure, there is no such risk as, they can take over everything, right? But also the social people, right? I mean, the ministers, the lawmakers need to make sure, that some things are protected and, people have other jobs, and education system, if one particular skill is no longer required, then they should introduce new courses that's relevant, right? And this is where creativity comes in, right? The last thing that you can automate is creativity. So any creative jobs, I think, will be the safest in the future, right? I mean, there is somebody painting a picture or somebody composing a music will be far more superior than a machine doing it for a very long time, right? But we don't know. We don't know. Maybe systems will hack up so many tunes and we'll have, methods to figure out this is a better music, without an individual doing it, right? But I would definitely say any job, any studies that has creativity, not just rote knowledge, like just reading the books, they will be more AI proof than the others, right?
So we don't need to just worry and just forecast how will future change it.
Not at an individual level, right? Like I said, the system is inverted, right? The president decides or the prime minister decides pretty much everything. And then the ministers. If it's a private company, the CEO decides pretty much what happens, right? As human beings, we need to be making sure we put the right people there. The president is elected by the individuals, the people, right? The companies, all those things, So humans, we need activism, right? I mean, we need to make sure we put the right people in the right position, and we have a role to play in it, right? We should do that really well, vote well, come out and protest against bad policies, right? But beyond that, decisions and all are done top down. We just need to make sure we don't let the bad people get into those positions.
Then there are with so many new AI technologies emerging so quickly. So how do you personally keep up with the pace of innovation?
I read a lot, right? So I love reading. Learning has always been very central to me. I always loved learning. And the more digitalization happened, learning has become much easier. When I started going to engineering school, there was no internet. The only books we could find is in a library, costly books, which you can only read in the library. You couldn't take it out, right? So now I can just open up my phone and I have short form videos, Wikipedia, Chat GPT, any information I need is at the tip of my finger, So I just read, right? And it's so easy. You can literally ask what's in your mind. What does AI mean? And ChatGPT will give you an answer. Give me 10 applications that use AI, it will give you that. Will AI take my job? You can ask that question, And then, it's standard learning. It's much easier nowadays.
Then, in my viewpoint, there are so many bad documents or bad writings in the internet. So we need to pick the good writing or pick the good documents is the important thing in the internet world. So how do you treat that?
It's standard principles, right? So anybody in academia knows not to read Wikipedia. We only read peer-reviewed journals, right? So that are publicized in scientific journals and things like that, right? We look for technology, we look at company websites. If Google posts a blog, we read that, right? It's the standard principles. I mean, check the credibility of where the source is from, right? If it's a political organization putting a propaganda, you shouldn't trust it, right? I mean, they are clearly putting out an agenda. They have an agenda versus, scientific journals are definitely the number one source. They are peer-reviewed, which means other people have verified the content is right. Then look for, credible organizations and articles and things like that, right? Look for view counts and things like that, right? But it's the standard principles. Check for the credibility of the source. Depending upon how credible it is, that's how good the data is.
So credibility means
Can you trust that information? Is that person qualified? Has that person researched in that area? Does that person know about what he or she is talking? And most importantly, that person doesn't have an agenda. She is not trying to sell a product or a technology. It's just trying to explain something. Anytime there is commercial benefit for a person who is communicating, there could be an agenda. It could be a selling tactic, it could be a bad product. They just want to make money, right? So yeah, especially when it comes to social events and documents or commercial products, you have to be careful. You'll have to read reviews, right? So instead of the product review that is listed on a paid website, go look in a website like in America. There are review sections, like Yelp or something like that, where an independent customer can say how good that product is, right? So look for neutral viewpoints, right? Look for extreme viewpoints. Don't just look the good comments. Look at also the bad comments and see where those come from, right? So yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting point for me too. Then when we look at technology trends over time, some innovations rise and fall. So like how blockchain gained hype and then faded. So how do you view AI in this context? As you said, it's not scam, but do you see it as a lasting transformation or just another trend?
It is something that will change, right? See, blockchain had a very limited scope.
That's right.
Right? It's just a secure way of tracked records and things like that, right? Versus AI, all they are saying is, I'm fundamentally changing the way computing happens, right? Numerical computing, you had a start point and input, and you then wrote all the code on what all needs to happen to create this output.
That's right.
In AI, it's like, if this is the input, this is the output, what should the code be? You figure it out, right? Because that's how brain works. I don't tell my brain how to recognize an individual. It just happens automatically, right? So AI is nothing but mimicking human intelligence, right? That's going to change because if I don't have to worry about how to write code and if the systems can automatically figure it out, if a system can be sentient or intelligent like a human being, that's much, much more convenient. So it is going to happen. And unlike other technologies, AI is not new. AI takes its roots back in 60s, where there is this human machine and all those kind of things, right? The only thing that is happening differently in AI is AI requires a lot of computing. It was not cost effective earlier. Now it is. That's the only difference. The theories around AI has been there for decades. Now you can apply it at human scale because it's cheap enough. So in truth, companies like Samsung and Nvidia made AI happen, not the people who are like OpenAI and ChatGPT, right? So I think the hardware being very cheap to run, millions and millions of cores doing this, AI computing is what is causing the AI explosion at this point of time, not any breakthrough innovation in technology like neural net or things like that, So
That's very interesting point too. Then is it too many questions to you?
No.
Is it okay? Okay. Then how can individuals or companies best prepare for these future technologies?
the key thing is any new technology when it's developed doesn't give you return of investment. You lose money, you don't make money. You have to persist at it for years before it becomes profitable. So large companies are already investing on it. If you are an entrepreneur or a starter, don't even try because any new technology has its own curve, before it becomes mass produced and adopted, right? But if you're an individual, keep learning, keep reading, be open minded. Look for what's the next technology being. If you're a student, you can always, there are some standard academic paths you can never fail, like be a mathematician, always will be required, right? But just be open minded, read a little bit, and be brave when you take the next job. Every time you take a job, you have a choice of doing the job you already know and you're good at, or taking a risk on something that's slightly away, something you don't know, but something slightly a little bit more advanced. Right? Take that risk, Tell them be honest, saying, I don't really know about it, but I would love to do a job in AI. Many people will take it. There's not enough people to go around who is fully trained in an upcoming technology. All they are looking for is, are you smart? Are you working hard? Do you have previous history of being successful in doing something new? Take a risk, take a leap of faith and do something new.
That's right. The new emerging technology will take some years.
Yeah, like anybody who is studying typewriting is wrong. It's no longer required, So we clearly know what is obsolete technology and obsolete academy at this point of time. Things and jobs that you should no longer be working on or investing in, right? Then there is the safe zone, which is established, well-paid jobs or well-adopted, school courses, right? And then a few people, always will be the leaders studying something new. These are the PhD students working on some research. They might work, it may not work, right? Things like that. You need to decide. Definitely don't be on the bottom curve, which is the people who are hanging on to the very old technologies, which is more a pain to maintain than a use, right? But you can play it safe on like well-working things. For next 10 years, you can still be a coder. There is some amount of coding required still. So you just need to like figure out, there is always, Gartner has something called the technology curve. They will say what are established technologies, what are upcoming technologies, what is fading away technologies in our world, and you need to decide which ones are the ones to invest and which one are the ones you just wash away from, right? The more latest technologies you use, the higher risk you have and the higher rewards you make.
And also, there's no choice that doesn't have risk.
Honestly, if you ask me when I was in college on what I would end up doing, I would have no clue, right? But the thing is, I took risks, I worked hard at my job, and whenever somebody called me and said, hey, do you want to do something new? I always said yes, all right? I could have said no and stayed with the same company, not taken the risk. I would have grown higher and things like that, So it depends upon how much risk you can tolerate and how much happiness and motivation you get from it. Some people hate risk. It makes them anxious and all those things. Then don't do it. A lot of people do love risk, and they understand the reward, right? You have to find what is the right balance of risk and reward for you. And keep in mind that the older you get, your risk-taking ability goes lesser and lesser. People think it's the other way. Now that I have money, now that I'm settled, I can take more risks. No, it's the other way. Now I have more to lose. When I was a kid at 20, if I had a job and somebody said, you want to take this job, I would have taken it. I have nothing to lose, right? So the more risk you want to take it when you're younger, because even though you think you can take more risk when you're older, no. Your risk tolerance goes down as you age.
So we need to experience anything at the young age.
Take more risk when you're young, okay? Because if you fail fast, you can always find something new to do, right? When you're older, you can't. You have more constraints, more obligations, more things to think about that you can't take those risks. Take it as much as possible when you're very young.
Okay, I will do that too. And we will go to the life lesson topic. If you have any biggest regret in your life, what is your biggest regret in your life?
My biggest regret in life, like I said, why did I say don't chase money is because I wanted to be a doctor. And being an established doctor and making returns on my career would have taken a much longer time. And being an engineer was a faster path to success and making money and things like that. So because I saw my brother go into medicine. So I deliberately changed my career path after my 12th grade from medicine to engineering. And I regret it, because to me, the biggest reward that you get from work is the motivation and the happiness that you get every day. And, I don't think you need any further motivation if you're a doctor, because every day, irrespective of all the other issues that's going around you, you're working with a patient and changing that person's life. You can't get that motivation in engineering, because I write a document or write some piece of code. By the time it's implemented, made a product, some customer uses it, and if he's happy, I'll never hear about it. If he's sad, I will never hear about it, right? So, the motivation and reward you get from your career is very important, and I regret that I didn't choose medicine and took engineering for the wrong reasons,
That makes really touch me.
Yeah.
Then, is there a core value that you always hold on in your life?
Yeah. To me, I'm very authentic. What I mean, I don't say things because it will make me popular or my boss will be happy or things like that. I try to be very authentic and say what's in my heart. A younger one would have done it too, but in a bad way, like yelled or things like that. Nowadays, I'm a little bit more diplomatic. If something I shouldn't say, I keep quiet, because sometimes not saying is also important. Not everything needs to be said, right? So I'll be silent, but whatever I say and do, I try to be authentic. I'm not doing it, for some selfish gains. I'm doing it because that's the right thing to do, right thing to say, or that's the fact, So being authentic is very, very near and dear to me. That is something I'll try to compromise less and less, and I know that from my life.
Then maybe there are so many statistics like the modern society's people is unhappy in their life. So why do you think they are unhappy in their modern society?
I would say mainly because they don't read. Okay, so happiness is a construct. It's like thinking whether a glass is half full or half empty. It's just an interpretation, how you perceive the world. When we were in my generation, we were told about a lot of mythical stories and things like that, which made me understand that The same thing you can look at and say it's half empty and be unhappy, or say it's already half full and be happy. The fact is it's still a half glass, right? So my parents, my story, my culture, my generation gave me all those stories. So they taught me more philosophy, which I think is a subject that is being read less and less in modern community. You don't hear about philosophy and things like that often nowadays in newer constructions. Everything is 30-second videos and 20-minute anime and things. Even the longer the content is, of course, they can put a bigger message into it. A 30-second video can only put so much content into it. Right. Barely can it have any message, So I think it is what you are taught as a generation, When my generation was happier because we were told stories like money is not everything, helping others is also happiness, even though when you share your things, you lose some, right? So it is all about upbringing, right? I mean, a human being is part nature, how you are born, which you cannot change much, and the rest is nurture, how you have been brought up in this world, right? And the previous generations, they were brought up with a lot more values and stories and, philosophy. The newer generations miss that. So I would say go back and read those kind of books, the virtue of selfishness by, Bertrand Russell. There are so many old books that actually says, think about your life. Is it all just about material? Is it just about 3 meals a day? No. Think about what makes you happy, what makes you sad. We don't spend time on those kind of things anymore. So you can only perceive happiness through physical things like food, happy, drinks, happy, right? But a lot of happiness comes from reflection and thinking and brain. That nobody knows about it. So maybe that's what it is.
That's different from pleasure. Yeah. Then I already finished my question. So is there any final message you'd like to share?
No, I'm a big fan of Korean drama, so I watch a lot. And for me, I started it once I joined Samsung. There's so many different cultures and things like that. So, but I do really love a lot of things. It's a value-based culture, which I really like. It respects elders and things like that. So there's a lot of things to love about your culture.
What's your best Korean drama?
I recently watched When Life Gives You Tangerines. It's really good.
Then just one more. Then could you recommend one books that you like?
So this is something different since we discussed philosophy and all. Read the Homo Sapiens by Yuval.
Yuval Harari.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anoop.